Welcome to the Answers for Elders radio show. Meet the trusted experts who will give you straight answers and will help guide you on the path of later life care. Now, here's your host, founder, caregiver, and CEO, Suzanne Newman.
And welcome back, everyone, to Answers for Elders Radio Network. And we are here with published author and Alzheimer's Speaks CEO, expert, and of course, recognized by Oprah and Maria Shriver, Lori La Bey. And we are here talking about emotional wellness. And emotional wellness really fits in with Lori's book called Betty the Bald Chicken, Lessons in How to Care. And yes, it's a children's book, but this is really for those of you. I read the book. I had tears in my eyes thinking about all the ways in which I just didn't even think in my life of how I may not have valued others. And so this is a book for everyone. And so Lori, welcome back to the show. And I'm very excited to hear a little bit about Betty and her story.
Well, thanks. I'm so excited about this book. You know, we just launched in February, and right now it's coming up as in the top 100 children's books, which is just amazing.
That is so cool.
With so many of them. And I think what makes Betty different is it's approachable. So I really look at the book as being a tool to use. I think so often as adults, we think we're going to teach the kids, but I think our little guys have a lot to teach us. You know, they look at the world really different. They don't judge nearly. They don't make snap decisions like we do. They just want to play. Yeah. And everybody wants to play. Everyone wants to be part of a community. So Betty's story is really about living in community, feeling whole, and then something changes. And it's something little where she just loses a feather. And she kind of has that instinctual feeling like something's changed, but what do I say? No one's noticed. It's just one feather, no big deal kind of deal. And then all of a sudden she loses a lot of feathers. Yeah. And then everybody notices, and she's actually in pain as these, you know, kind of get tugged out of her. And her whole life in that instant is never the same. You know, her family and her friends pull away from her. They're worried they might catch what she has. She looks all bloody and pockmarked and bald, and nobody understands what's going on. They pull their kids away and won't let them engage. She's uninvited from parties and committees that she served on. I mean, she really is just isolated. And so often this is the story of a family caregiver. You know, people get absorbed in caring for someone else, and their world gets really small, and people don't understand. And yet it's a conversation that most people don't talk about. They don't talk about that loneliness and, you know, how awful that feels to be shunned and feel not loved and valued. And
well, and what you're saying is so valuable as a family caregiver that, you know, how often do we talk to caregivers and they say that their family members don't even think about them? It's like they go off on their lives, and the family caregiver is always left to pick up the pieces and to be there during the hard times and the difficult times and all the day-to-day stuff. And yet, do we as family members ever say thank you? Do we ever do something to appreciate that person? They're making sacrifices so you can live a normal, you know, everyday life. And so finding ways to do that and allowing yourself as a caregiver to be cared for, I think, is the other part of it. Because a lot of us time as a caregiver, we may say, oh, never mind, it's okay. Well, it isn't okay. It's the fact that we have to learn to also take it in. And I think that's part of it. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, it's much easier to give care than to receive care for most of us, because we grew up to be independent, to be in control. We don't need anyone else. I mean, I don't even like to take my car in for an oil change and be without my keys, you know?
Right.
And that's how silly we are as a society. So it's hard for us to accept, because when we're caring for someone, especially when it's someone we love, we set the standard so high. You know, that bar is so high, and we don't want to let them down. And by not wanting to let them down, sometimes, and we don't even know, and I know I did this myself, I kind of build a wall up from letting people in. Even though I'm mad at my brothers because they're not helping out, I'm not looking at how I am making them feel as
Sure.
well. And then,
Sure.
you know, there's also the other side of the person we're caring for. You know, they're feeling typically, you know, disempowered. They're feeling less than, because
Mhm.
like all of us, you know, or like most of us, we don't like to be cared for. We want to be in charge of our own life. So
Sure.
it comes in on many, many levels. And like you said, this can be kids with bullying. This could be because of a divorce, could be because of a death. I mean, there's just all those situations where we feel overwhelmed and isolated. And that's
True.
really what happened to Betty when she loses her feathers. And so because she's not accepted and pulled into her community anymore, she kind of wanders off and she's crying and thinking, what did I do? I don't even know what's wrong with me. Nobody cares. No one's asking, you know, because when people are uncomfortable, they just stay away because they don't know what to say. You know, it's
Right.
kind of like when you go to a funeral, how many times do you hear somebody make a comment and someone else goes, oh, why did they say that? Because
Yeah.
they don't know what else to say. And
True.
and so Betty ends up tumbling, you know, off this cliff. And little does she know, there's a whole nother community at the bottom of this ravine that brings her in, called the Caring Corral. And they don't ask her what's wrong. They want to heal her soul. They want to welcome her in their community. And their goal is for Betty to be healthy and well.
Yeah.
And that is not always our goal
No.
in families, in society as a whole. And so she ends up living in this ravine, and, you know, for a while, and then they ask her, why don't you just stay here? You know, no one's come looking for you. And
Yeah.
that's kind of a heartbreaking thing. And gosh, all these people I loved and were close to, I called them family and friends, and no one's come looking for me. So she stays in this ravine until later on she ends up getting sick again. And
Yeah.
then the Caring Corral then goes back up to the barnyard and says, you know, you all have one last chance. What do you want? Do you want to continue to push Betty away and forget what she's been in your life? Or are you going to come
Mhm.
back in and step up and
Yeah.
give her meaning and give you meaning and acknowledge that? And that's where the questions come in,
Sure. Sure.
to be able to ask.
So when we talk about emotional wellness, I have a question for you. How much do you think our society as a whole knows how to validate someone else that we love? Do you think families that you work with do a good job, or do you think that they could do better?
I think everybody in the whole world can do better, period.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
it's something we're not schooled on. We're not trained on. If we have a great family example, and maybe it could be a teacher, could be a neighbor, could be somebody else too. But
Mhm.
you know, if we don't have that somebody leading us by example, it really isn't taught.
Right. Right. And so Lori and I, absolutely, we're going to come back. We're going to give you some tools on how to validate those that you love, how you can certainly feel more connected to those around you. And we'll be right back right after this. We at Answers for Elders thank you for listening. Did you know that you can discover hundreds of podcasts in our library on senior care? So visit our website and discover our decision guides that will help you also navigate decision making. Find us at answersforelders.com.